Okay, this is our second analysis, this time for the Super Mario Brothers theme. And we're going to do a very similar thing that we did last week, but I don't need to spend as much time going over how to do this. So if we just get started, if you need to use the pitch help box, you can use it, it's in the middle of the screen. So we're going to do the pitch first, that's the first on our analysis checklist. So first of all, let's choose the blue pen. And at the top, this first note is in the top space. Remember that when it's in a space, think of the word face from bottom to top, F-A-C-E. So that's going to be an E. And if you look at it, the first three notes are all E's. In fact, that's an E as well. So we can do that really quickly. The one before that E I've just written in is also in a space. So that's a C. And the next one isn't in a space or on a line. Well, it's in a space, but it's not in one of the ones that's in our rhymes. So we've got to think about, well, if we've got that E there, then on the line, just above it would be an F. So this is one above F, which is G. The next note is on a line, second line up. So every good boy deserves football. So that's also a G, but the difference is that it's one octave lower. Into the second bar, we've used this note before, it's a C. I should have said before, this next thing here, this isn't a pitch, that's a rest. It's a semiquaver rest, and we'll talk about that when we get onto rhythm. So as we continue on, we've got G, E, A, B. This one's got the symbol in front of it, so it is a B flat, and it would be a B flat for the whole of the rest of the bar, although we're quite near the end now, and A. Then in the next bar, we've got something that we've not seen before, but we'll come on to that in a moment. The pitches are just the same as the ones we've looked at before. So G, that's an E, that's a G. One above a G in music, remember, is A. Then we've got F, G, E, C, D, B. Now, if you're wondering how on earth I worked that out, and you've no idea what I was doing there really, please make sure you watch last week's video that was the one on Jurassic Park, and I go through that in detail. But as I say, no reason to do that today. So we've gone through that, and we've now analysed the pitch. We've written all the notes down, so we can take that there. Okay, the next one we're going to do is rhythm, and we've got something new at the bottom here. We've got a rhythm help box, and I've done that specifically because there are really mainly three durations of notes that we use within this melody: crotchet, quaver, and semiquaver. And crotchet looks like this one, or if we want it to be a rest, so in other words a silence of the same length, these are the rests here. Okay, and then underneath we've got the same symbols, or sorry, different symbols for the quaver and for the semiquaver. Now, if we write down the number of beats that each of those is worth, whether it is a note or a rest, then a crotchet is 1, a quaver is a half beat, and a semiquaver is a quarter beat. Now, something that I've added here is this, which is the number of semiquaver boxes. And the reason that's important is because when we've been analysing our rhythm, as we'll do again in a moment, we're looking at this grid up here. And each one of these square boxes has the value of a semiquaver. So it's helpful to be able to know how many boxes long each of these different values and notes are. So a semiquaver, obviously, it's a semiquaver box. So therefore, one of those little square boxes at the top, that's how long a semiquaver or a semiquaver rest lasts for. If it's a quaver, so let's find an example of that. Where's a quaver? Here's a quaver. There's a quaver there. That lasts for 2 boxes. And if it's a crotchet, so let's have an example of that. That's a crotchet there. And then that lasts for 4 boxes. So in that way, it's helpful for us to be able to not just use the notation that's written in the stave at the top there, but it's also helpful because then this box here, this whole line along here, for a lot of people, that's going to be an easier way for us to think about this rhythm. Now, I've actually pre-populated or already written in where each of those notes starts. I've done that for you this week. But maybe the next thing you would do, if you were watching this video and you weren't sure about this rhythm for the first time, is you would go through step by step, and you would count the pulses and see if you could tap along to it. Okay, so for example, in that first bar, if I was to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'll count again, but this time I'm going to try and tap whenever there's a cross under the number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And eventually you will get faster as you do that, if you can count fast enough, I guess. And you can start to understand feel the pattern of the rhythm. So that rhythm is just like that, okay? If you use GarageBand, as we'll do in the next video, then you'll be able to kind of see how that works with the notes as well. Okay, so that's rhythm, we've done that, so we'll tick it off over here. Okay, sorry the pen colour was a bit different, wasn't it? But never mind. Now the next one, dynamics. This is an interesting one today. There's no dynamic marking on the score like forte or piano or anything like that. Actually, it's done like that on purpose, because when this music came out in 1985, the technology was such that there wasn't very much dynamic range available in that technology. And what that means is it was very difficult to have loud sounds and soft sounds. So a lot of the sounds were just the same. So I would like us to think about that when we create things, if you're going to use GarageBand later. Because it is possible to set what we call the velocity so that it's all the same for every note. And even if you're not going to use GarageBand, but you're going to use your instrument, try to play it consistently so it doesn't get softer and it doesn't get louder. Okay, so that's dynamics done. Now, articulation is a big deal for this piece, and it's because this melody is all about sharing the character, the Mario character within the game, and about following the pattern that he runs around the screen, and so that aspect of character is so important. We talked about in articulation last week that using slurs and staccato and accents and things like that were really important because it brought the character out in the melody. So let's have a quick look, see what we've got. Well, we've got some of these. We had these before, these dots. Remember that's staccato. Just notice how I'm spelling it there. We had a couple of people that did a single C and two T's at the end last week, so make sure you spell that right. And we've got another staccato note here. Remember that means detached. Actually, as you play through this and as you listen to the original, lots of these notes are staccato notes, maybe not just the ones that are marked. But I would say the ones that are marked are really, really important that we made those staccato, because otherwise the character and the melody won't sound right. There's something that isn't marked here. This part here, the triplet rhythm, I should have mentioned that earlier, sorry about that. We're going to put a slur in here to play those smoothly. And when we come to record it in a few minutes, then we need to be thinking about that, because that motion up to the top, that's it, imagining that the character is jumping on the screen, is jumping in a smooth motion, and the music describes that. Okay, so that's articulation. Now the timbre, or the instrument we're going to use, the instrument doesn't really matter, whatever you play, but the instrument I'm going to choose, that I'm going to try and make it sound like it was in a 1980s computer game. It would have been created electronically. And so instruments that are based on a tone generator, that's called a synthesizer. Depending on where you live in the world, it's spelled slightly differently. But for us in the UK, that's how we spell it. So have a look at that. Okay, so that's timbre. Tempo. Let's grab the right colour. The tempo's at the top here, remember. So we've got 96 beats per minute. In fact, 96 crotchet beats per minute if we're going to be accurate. Now, something new that we didn't have last week is melodic shape, and we're just going to have a look at the shape within each bar. So in that top bar here, our melody starts fairly high up, whoops, and it goes up and then it drops down. So that's the shape in that first bar. In the second bar, it starts not quite as high up. It goes down and then back up again, and then like that at the end. Okay, you might be able to do a slightly neater job than I'm doing here. This last one, it has a much bigger range, and then it kind of comes down like that. So that's interesting because the shape is different in each bar. Now, in the original music, the original performance of this, from this part here to this part here, those two bars 2 and 3, are repeated straight away afterwards. So that's actually the music for bars 4 and 5 as well. And so we'll recreate that when we do it in a moment. So that's the melodic shape. And the last one that I've got there is a melodic device. Now, often when you write melodies, it's best to try and write notes that are close to each other, by step, or fancy word for that, conjunct. And if we were to have our notes further apart from each other, they feel like they leap, which obviously in this computer game genre, you want your character to leap, so the melody reflects that. But the way the composer deals with that is that they use something called a broken chord. Literally, as it sounds, the notes of a chord broken up. And the chord that is used a lot in this opening section is the C major chord. And the C major chord's got 3 notes in it: C, E, and G. So I'm now going to look along the top and see where I can find those notes used one after another. And look here, I can see this is the first broken chord here. So the composer wanted to jump in between these notes so they don't go by step, but they do fit into this chord, and that helps them to kind of maintain a sense of control in the jump, I suppose. Let's have a look here. This is a downward jump or descending jump, down C, G and E. So that's actually our C broken chord as well. Let's have a look further on. Here as well, we've got G, E, G. So the C is not used, but the C could have been put in there as well. And then we've got one more, which is here, G, E, C. So it's quite clever. And if you look at the pattern of how those fit in, we've got one up, one down, one up, one down. So as we look at melody in more detail, it can or does become very fascinating, the extra bits and pieces that you can find and the extra detail. And as you're writing your own music, try to think about these details as well, as opposed to it just being a note that happens to happen at a certain time. Try to write things with purpose, even if you're not sure what how the purpose necessarily connects from one purpose to the next. It's really important to be able to just be creative and be inventive with your ideas, and you'll find that things will work together and create great music.